what provokes Putin is the perception of weakness. Trump got that, but then he doesn't stick with it a lot of times, depending on who's in his ear, whether it's Rand Paul or whoever it is. Some of the kind of, I don't know, the retrenchers or neo-isolationist wings of the Republican Party. Anyway, there are a lot of stories in the book about Ukraine and his evolution of his approach toward Russia. And I'm concerned about, this is one of the areas I'm concerned about in a second Trump administration, is would he sustain that support? What I'm hearing about these so-called peace plans would be a gift to Putin and misunderstand Putin again. Putin won't stop unless he is physically stopped.
What about the slowdown of armaments to the Ukraine? Something that he was impeached for, frankly.
Right.
Was space created as a result of Donald Trump's decision-making and this unexplained love affair with Vladimir Putin, which, frankly, you write about? You can't figure out what the love affair was. I certainly can't. I can't even speculate what it was. But the theory that he slowed down the arms. We had this Operation Porcupine since 1994, fortify the Ukraine to protect the Ukraine. It's a form of deterrence. He slowed down the arms. NATO seemed fractured. We're going to go for his first NATO speech at the first NATO summit in a second. Putin said, hey, we got an opening here. This NATO thing is in disarray. The Americans have slowed down their arms shipments. Let me attack Ukraine. Or you don't believe that?
Well, I think it was wrong.
Tell me what you think.
Hey, I think it was wrong for him to suspend arms shipments to the Ukrainians to get dirt on the Bidens, to use in the election. But hey, Anthony, I think what green-lighted the Russian invasion was the fecklessness of the Biden administration, demonstrated with the disastrous withdrawal in Afghanistan, responsibility for which is shared with the Trump administration too. And I write about that. I criticize both administrations on it. But hey, when that happened, when August of 2021 in Kabul happened, I think China and Russia said, these guys are over. They've surrendered to a terrorist organization, or at least defeated themselves. And remember the joint statement before the Beijing Olympics, Anthony, where they're like, hey, you're done. We're in charge now. It's the new era of international relations. I think that's what led to the reinvasion. And the Biden administration, I would say, they pulled our ships out of the Black Sea. The Biden administration suspended weapon shipments to Ukraine too, to allay Putin's security concerns. We listed all the things we wouldn't do to support Ukraine. We evacuated and scuttled our embassy, right? And took all of our advisors out. And then we offered Zelensky a ride out of the place. I mean, to me, that looks like we almost green-lighted the invasion. So I think, the story I tell in the book about bringing the decision of President Trump to provide javelins to Ukraine the first time, the point I was trying to make to him, and I describe how we did it with the chart and everything, is that what provokes Putin is the perception of weakness. Trump got that, but then he doesn't stick with it a lot of times, depending on who's in his ear, whether it's Rand Paul or whoever it is. Some of the kind of, I don't know, the retrenchers or neo-isolationist wings of the Republican Party. Anyway, there are a lot of stories in the book about Ukraine and his evolution of his approach toward Russia. And I'm concerned about, this is one of the areas I'm concerned about, in a second Trump administration, is would he sustain that support? What I'm hearing about these, so-called peace plans would be a gift to Putin and misunderstand Putin again. Putin won't stop unless he is physically stopped in terms of his aggression, not only against Ukraine, but against Europe and the West in general.
What do you think it is? If you had to speculate, never says a bad word about Putin, always praises Putin, tells people during an invasion how smart Putin is.
Yeah.
What do you think it is?
Well, there's a couple things. I want to hear what you think maybe too, Anthony, because I'm sure you got thoughts on this. But I think overall, he fancies himself as like the great negotiator, right? And if you want to negotiate with somebody, one of the techniques, right? We learned this in getting to yes, man. In negotiation mediation theory, you separate the relationship from the negotiation and you try to build a good relationship. That's one big part of it. He wants the big deal. I think that's one big part. Also, I think he sees authoritarian leaders regarded by their populations in the way he wants to be regarded, right? As a strong man. And then the third aspect of this, is he really wants to do what's right for the country in some areas. Like he's really worried about like the nuclear arms race, nuclear instability, and he thinks, okay, if I can get a really big deal, right? How great would that be? So I mean, it's not all just weird motivations or warped motivations. He wants to accomplish some tangible things with Russia. And finally, Anthony, he's reflexively contrarian. So like if everybody tells him, hey, Vladimir Putin has to be confronted. Vladimir Putin is not going to back off. You can't cut a deal with Vladimir Putin on Ukraine. He tends to kind of want to do the opposite of what he hears. So does that make sense to you? I mean, that's how I view it. I don't think he has anything on him. I don't think there's any, and all of that I think is noise that feeds into, his kind of sense of beleaguerment and insecurities as president. The Mueller investigation, all of that, charges of collusion. It created a really negative atmosphere, in that first year. And I read a lot about that in the book as well.
So, I mean, this is your interview, me interviewing you, not you interviewing me, but I'll just say one thing and then I'll switch to something else. I think it's a money thing. I know this sounds weird, but he loves money and he loves attention. And I think he sees himself as having a moneyed relationship with Vladimir Putin. He wanted to build the Moscow Trump Tower, and he sees Putin as the richest person in the world. And I think it's a money thing. But whatever, that's just me. I agree with you. I don't think they have anything on him. I don't think, and I think it's very simplistic stuff, which, but to me, it's unpresidential. But that's just for me. The United States, because you've looked at our intelligence briefings, the adversarial relationship we have with Russia. You know what they're doing to foment division in our democracy. You may remember this. You recommended a book to me called Putin's People by Catherine Belton. I don't know if you remember that.
Fantastic book.
You got me onto that book, and during COVID, I read the whole book, and it would be hard pressed as an American president if you read a book like that to say, "Hey, I'm going to be so praiseworthy of Vladimir Putin." I mean, no American president would do that.